Hey, how's it going, and welcome to another video. So before we get into it, I wanted to say this video is sponsored by the folks at Arxis. They were kind enough to send me a copy of the game to review, and I'm super appreciative for the opportunity. They've been my favorite fighting game developer for the past almost 10 years at this point, so being able to work with them like this is pretty cool. We made it, boys. So, Guilty Gear Strive. I've been following this game since basically day one, when it was first revealed at EVO, back in 2019. And it's been an interesting journey, you know, just about 2 years, 3 betas. There's a lot to talk about, so let's dig into it. So I figured to start off, the easiest thing to talk about is the visuals. It's no surprise that I'm gonna say I think this is probably the nicest looking fighting game ever made. I remember back when Exard was first announced, and I just thought, holy shit, this is just an anime in fighting game form. It really was just such a unique, cool, beautiful sort of style, and I remember thinking at the time, man, is there any way that they can, improve this? And then Fighters came out, and I was like, but is there any way they can improve this? And with Strive, I can very safely say that, yes, they absolutely have. Man, this game is just a visual treat. And it's kind of to the point where it's hard for me to sit there and be like, yeah, this thing is good, because it all just looks so nice. The character models are all spectacular, their animations are so pretty. The super attacks, I've seen many of these super attacks, you know, several dozen times, and I'm still like, whoa, every time I see one. Zato Super Amorphous, the Shark Pog, as I like to call it, is animated so beautifully. Millia's hair, all of her different hair attacks, they just look so nice. The hair is so pretty and kind of, free-flowing. The particle effects, man, all the effects on any kind of, elemental or energy-based projectile, they look so nice. Saul's fire looks amazing. Kai's lightning is beautiful. The stages, too, even though I would say I prefer Exard's stages overall, because they were just a little bit more kind of, weird and out there, I can't deny that the stages in this game look amazing. I could really ramble on all day about how nice the game looks, but I feel like everybody kind of already knows that. At least for me now, this style, I think, is the standard. Visually, at least, I think Strive is the new fighting game that, I'm going to make a very bad pun, that every other company should strive to try and match. Moving on to the sound, I think the overall sound design and music of this game is maybe its strongest aspect. They fucking killed it with the songs in this game. I remember when the characters were first getting revealed, a lot of the time the music reveal was just as exciting as the character reveal. And yeah, they nailed it. Guilty Gear being a series that is so heavily, inspired by music and music artists, that's just such a rock and roll game, the soundtrack is perfect. Some of my favorite songs include, of course, Disaster of Passion, May's theme, Roar of the Spark, Kai's theme, Chip's theme, which is not called Fight Like a Tiger, it is called Play the Hero. In my heart, it is still Fight Like a Tiger. Milia's theme, Love the Subhuman Self, Ram's theme, Necessary Discrepancy, Giovanna's theme, Trigger. They are all bops. I can't get enough of these songs. And even though all the new songs are great, something that very pleasantly surprised me about this game is just the dedication that it had to, preserving Guilty Gear's musical archives. Dog, this game is loaded the hell up with classic Guilty Gear songs. It has songs from the Exard games, the Double X games, Guilty Gear 2 Overture, Isuka. It has songs from the classic OG Guilty Gear. And not even just, battle themes from those old games. I'm talking, some of the vocal tracks that they would play during the story. Heavy Day from Guilty Gear Exard Sign is in it. I love that song. You like Holy Orders? Oh yeah, man, Holy Orders is in the game. And I think that really was probably the standout moment of my playtime with the game so far, is just going into the gallery and realizing, oh, wait a minute, there is a library of music to be unlocked here. So yeah, fans of classic Guilty Gear music, you are set. This game is loaded up with basically every track that you would want. Obviously, not literally every song ever is in there, but They could have just, like, not done this, but they really went the extra mile including all these songs. Now, ironically for me, the hardest part about this review is probably going to be talking about the gameplay, and it's not because I have a lack of things to say, it's honestly the opposite problem. I feel like I have too much to say. I think fighting games are kind of a unique beast in just the video game sphere because it's really hard to sit there and just, like, review something that has so much, like, intricacy, so much open-endedness. It really isn't like an RPG where you go through it, you finish it, and then you kind of base your opinions on that. Fighting games never really end, and I think to the same extent, like, discussion surrounding them never really ends either. So rather than breaking down every single system mechanic or change from the old games or whatever, I'm just gonna talk about, like, things that I like about the system, things that I'm not crazy about. So yeah, sorry if you were looking for a more scientific explanation. I'm not an expert, I just like these games, I don't know. So if I had to describe the overall gameplay of Strive in one word, it would be fun. Yes, the forbidden phrase, fun. But I don't know, at least for me, I think that Strive is just an immensely fun sort of game. I really like what they did with Strive. It's definitely very different, but it's different in a way that I think I can vibe with. I think it manages to strike a very nice balance between the madness of Guilty Gear with a more kind of grounded, more, how do I put this, more sort of heavy-feeling fighting game. So I guess one of the biggest changes, and I would say one that I do kind of miss, is the changes that they've made to how Gatling works. For anybody who's unfamiliar, Guilty Gear is pretty renowned for its Gatling system, which allows you to cancel different normals into other normals of, like, a higher power, I guess you could describe it. Like, punches can go into kicks, and kicks can go into slashes, slashes can go into heavy slashes. And as long as you follow this sort of hierarchy where punch was the weakest and heavy slash was the strongest, you could pretty much just, like, combo any of those buttons into any of the other buttons. This has been changed so that now punch and kick don't really Gatling into anything, but slash can Gatling into heavy slash. This overall makes it a lot harder to really optimize your damage when you land pokes. In Strive, if you hit somebody with, like, punch, for example, there's not really a whole lot you can do other than punch again. And at least for me, I do miss them, but I'm not really too distraught about them being gone, if that makes sense. Although it felt pretty weird in the first beta for me, you definitely acclimate to it pretty quickly. So that combined with the changes to air dashes, which I guess I'll just talk about that right now. The air dashes definitely take some getting used to. In prior games, when you air dash, you would just zippity-zoppity, like, fly around the screen. And in this game, your air dash is much more of a whoosh than a zippity-dippity. What the hell am I saying? And it definitely takes a bit of getting used to, like, having to kind of stop your momentum like that only to be pushed forward again. It feels a little bit awkward. However, what does feel super dinky is your backwards air dash, where if the regular air dash in the older games was a zippity dippity, and the forward air dash in this one is a zoom, the backwards air dash is like a, you go basically nowhere, and I think it bothers me less from, like, a gameplay perspective and more just because it looks weird. I feel like if the character moved just a slight bit further back, it would be fine, but I assume it's like that to discourage people from just getting in the air and running the hell away. But yeah, it does feel slightly kind of dinky. Another thing that I really enjoy, and this is something that's kind of, like, hard to describe or really, like, objectively explain why I like it, but something about the feeling of neutral in this game I find very enjoyable. I think it works as a great sort of hybrid of, you know, previous Guilty Gears and something that's more kind of grounded and, like, you know, footsie oriented, I suppose. I don't know, I find it very fun to kind of just play, you know, that game with your opponent where you're both kind of feeling each other out. You're not quite sure who's gonna make the first move. Like, do I air dash at him? Do I throw out some more projectiles? Like, or you can just both be unga bunga crazy madmen. One thing that I do absolutely miss is instant kills, and I think I miss them honestly less from, like, a gameplay point of view. I think I can understand why they're not in the game, just because, like, you know, it being a slower sort of system overall, I feel like that kind of thing would just be, like, a lot more effective in this kind of game. You know, in the older games, like, you would be able to move so fast and your control in the air was like, you could go wherever you want, basically. So it was so much harder to land those instant kills. You kind of had to, like, either get lucky or do a specific setup or get them dizzy. So that's just my guess on why they're not in the game. I still feel like they could have probably made it work. Maybe something like if it's in the last round and your opponent has less than, I don't know, 30% HP, you can activate it. But like I said, I honestly miss them less from a gameplay perspective, even though they're cool and they're really hype when they do happen. I think I miss them more just because of the visual and like the cool factor of it. I think the instant kills in Exard were one of the best and kind of like easiest ways to catch people's attention when it came to that game. You know, you want to show somebody how cool Guilty Gear is, it's just like, yeah man, check this out, Guilty Gear Exard Rev 2 all instant kills. And that's honestly what bums me out, it's just the fact that it's like, man, imagine seeing new instant kills with the Strive graphics. And I think it also would have just been, you know, a really good kind of marketing tool to have these like fucking awesome cinematic sorts of like, yeah, you are done, kid, like those kinds of attacks. Like, man, that guy didn't just lose, he got destroyed. So yeah, instant kills, I understand why they're gone, but man, were they awesome. Another thing that I thoroughly enjoy is the Roman cancel system in this game. Roman cancels, I think, are one of the coolest things in any fighting game, just like having the ability to pretty much at any moment say, actually, I didn't, you know, finish doing that attack. Or actually, I am moving immediately after shooting that projectile. Or, you know, this combo, it doesn't lead into a super when I do it this way. Haha, Roman cancel, super, gotcha. And the fun and kind of like versatility of the Roman cancels has absolutely been carried over to Strive. It just opens up the game so much and allows for so many unique kinds of situations, like Guilty Gear's overall kind of philosophy when it comes to meter use, I find so cool. Whereas in a lot of other games, it's kind of just like, yeah, this is pretty much just for your supers or like EX moves or whatever. In Guilty Gear, you can use it for supers, obviously, but you can also use it for Roman cancels, which can be applied like offensively, defensively, and you can also use it for your faultless defense, which is like this barrier that you can put up and not take any chip damage. And so just the resource management and versatility and the fun of the tension meter is absolutely still in place. But I'll talk about one more thing before we move on, and fighting games, like I said, there's so much to them, you could really talk about an individual game for forever. It's kind of like being asked to review chess. It's like, that's a tall order, man. But I guess my final purely gameplay thought is that I just find Strive to be a very satisfying and fun game. I think what it lacks in some of the complexities and like intricacies of some of the previous games, it more than makes up for in just being a purely enjoyable experience. Obviously, your mileage may vary, but I've played this game, like, I've played the betas of this game more than I have most other fighting games, and I enjoyed every second of it. It's the type of game that I can just sit there with somebody and run matches with them over and over and over and over again, trying out different characters, like, it's just fun, and I think just the overall, like, presentation and kind of feeling of the game is very satisfying. You know, every move has such a feeling of impact. Like, when you hit a fool with, you know, a counter hit heavy slash and it goes counter, it's like, yeah, bitch. Even though the combos are a lot shorter overall, I think they're nonetheless satisfying. They're just these great quick bursts of adrenaline that make you feel really cool for doing them. You know, when you got somebody up against the wall, oh shit, the wall is something I forgot to talk about at all, but, you know, when you got somebody up against the wall and it's like, you land that combo, the one with the Roman cancel that ends with the super and they go flying, it's like, yeah, dude. It's very satisfying to my dumb little gorilla brain, I don't know. And for newcomers to the series especially, I think this is an absolutely fantastic place to start. Like, beyond just people that are new to Guilty Gear, I think people that are new to fighting games as a whole, this is like right up your alley. So I lied, we're only half done talking about the gameplay. I'd like to take a moment to talk about the roster of the game. Overall, I think it's a really good cast, and they made some great choices with it, even though there's a couple characters I'd obviously like to see added, but I think it's a great selection. There's definitely somebody here for everybody. All the classics are back. Saul, Kai, obviously, Chip, Potemkin, Axel, Zato, Milia, May, Foss, the sort of classic Guilty Gear characters that were pretty much guaranteed to get in. And then you have the return of fan favorites like Anji, Leo, Ramlethal, Ino, as well as the two newcomers, Nagoriyuki and Giovanna. I think these two are both really great inclusions. They both have great designs. Man, that's another thing I should talk about. The character designs in this are so good. Ramlethal especially, she looks amazing. Everybody out here looking nice, but if I do have one complaint about the roster, it's that I wish there was one more new character. I'd imagine picking a roster for a new fighting game is kind of a weird endeavor because it's kind of like this balancing act between picking fan favorites and adding new characters. Obviously, everybody went crazy when it turned out Ramlethal was coming back. You know, people are deeply attached to these characters, myself included, so obviously we want to see them in the game, but I'm sure there's a lot of internal discussions about how many new characters should be added, how many returning characters should there be. And even though I really like Nago and Giovanna, I feel like the game really could have used at least one more fresh face to kind of liven things up. So we'll just have to see what happens with the upcoming DLC characters. I'd expect it to be a lot of returning characters since that's kind of just what makes sense financially. Everybody wants to buy, you know, Baiken or Bridget or Bedman. Hey, add Bedman as DLC, thanks. So I'm definitely hoping to see some fresh faces coming up. So now I'd like to talk about some of the single player modes, and even though single player is obviously not the focus in a fighting game, it's pretty much all about, you know, finding people to fight online. I still appreciate having something to do when I'm not getting beaten up online, and I'd say Strive pretty much provides what you'd expect. There is an arcade mode, which I don't think is quite as good as the episode modes from Exard. Those were awesome. They were like these little self-contained stories relating to the characters with like unique animations and stuff. And this definitely feels a lot more like a standard arcade mode. The arcade mode follows a pretty similar structure across all of them. In the first stage, you beat up somebody, you have a conversation with them, and they become like your buddy. Then you fight up to stage 8, fight a boss with them working alongside you. And these are a lot of fun. Like, it's very apparent the game system is really not designed for this. It's pretty much just you putting the boss in like a prison of block stun until they die. But it's pretty entertaining nonetheless. And then there's like a little ending. I went through a few and they were pretty entertaining. Anji's especially had me in stitches. I never thought I wanted to see Anji and Chip interact so badly. There's a survival mode. It's a survival mode. You kind of just fight dudes. At stage 10, you fight the fucking devil. Yeah, not much to it. So here's a pro tip for anybody who gets the game. Do the mission mode. Do not be deceived. The tutorial is not really the tutorial. The tutorial is basically there to affirm that you are in fact a human with arms. Where you're really going to learn things is in the mission mode, and I gotta say, I really like what they did with the mission mode. The missions totally run the gamut from very basic actions like teaching you how to double jump, concepts like the difference between a close slash and a far slash, how to do character special moves, how to do their overdrives, how to air dash, how to jump cancel. And as you make your way through the missions, they gradually become more intricate and more interesting. There's missions about how to deal with certain characters. For example, is Fafnir giving you trouble? Yeah, that move is annoying. It'll teach you a counter strategy to deal with that. Did you know that when you put your opponent in the shock state as Kai, you do more chip damage? Well, you will if you do the mission mode. And rather than going for the typical approach where you do the mission once and it's over, the game really expects you to actually know how to do this stuff, instead of just giving you a free pass for happening to get it right. In order for the mission to be considered cleared, you have to get it right 3 out of 5 times. So there's no flukes with this one. You gotta actually get it right and understand how to do some of these actions. It definitely takes on an approach of, if you want to learn this stuff, come learn it. In the tutorial, Kai straight up tells you, yeah man, if you want to learn more, go to the mission mode. And it's kind of up to you to decide if you do want to learn more. You do, by the way. You should absolutely do the mission mode. Not saying that you need to do every single mission, because Lord knows I haven't. Some of the rank 5 missions are genuinely difficult. But I would definitely say at least dip your toes in it, explore some of the things that you find interesting. If there's a mission that shows up and you think, oh wait, how do I do that? Or how do I deal with this? Or what does this mean? Then like, do it. But yeah, definitely check out the mission mode. It's really cool, very informative, and there's a lot of concepts in there that are useful to both new players and people who have been around for a while. Finally, there's the Guilty Gear World mode. And I really appreciate the effort they went through with this. It's basically like a self-contained wiki in the game. There's character bios, like definitions for different concepts, weapons, attacks, nations, intricate character relationship charts, a Guilty Gear timeline. It is just an excellent resource for information about this series. Something that I really like is the fact that whenever you change the timeline, the art changes to match that game. So for example, when you're looking at the Guilty Gear 1 relationships, it shows the Guilty Gear 1 character sprites. For XX, it shows the XX art. For Exard, it shows the Exard art. It's another great little detail that they really didn't have to do. I don't think anybody would have particularly minded if all these characters just had their Strive art, but it's just a really cool little detail and something that I got a kick out of. So yeah, Guilty Gear World is awesome, a great resource for anybody who likes Guilty Gear or who wants to learn more about these characters, or is confused by the many complicated things about the story. Guilty Gear World's got your back if you're into that kind of stuff. Which I am. So to talk about the story a little bit, I'm not really going to be showing a whole lot of footage, nor am I going to be talking about most of the events of the story, since I think you should experience it for yourself, but the story was interesting. It's definitely very different from what I was expecting. Story-wise anyways, visually it looks amazing. I definitely got a kick out of it. It's a great blend of kind of schlocky, funny. Some of the fights are pretty cool. There's definitely some moments of intrigue in it. But above all else, I do feel like it is a very satisfying conclusion to Saul's story. And even though I enjoyed it, I would say there were quite a few things about it that kind of let me down. Mostly having to do with certain characters just not appearing in it basically at all. And there is a certain major character involved in the story that I found pretty insufferable, but I definitely enjoyed watching it at the very least. So one last thing before we move on to the online is the unlockables. I am an unlockable fiend in fighting games. Like, even though they're obviously a lot of fun to just play, I feel like having something that you can kind of work towards in a, the single player of it makes the experience a lot better. That was something I liked a lot about Exart, is just being able to play with your homies, get some world dollars, and then go unlock some stuff. And I am very happy to say that Strive is a fucking treasure trove of unlockables. It has character reveal trailers, which is like such a cool thing to just have in the game. Even though you can obviously just go and watch it on YouTube, I don't know, I think there's something kind of cool about like being able to watch this little piece of the game's own history in the game. So if you're a fan of unlocking stuff like concept art and music, then this is right up your alley. Now with this comes, this is really weird for me to say, but I think legitimately my biggest complaint about Guilty Gear Strive is the lack of ability to purchase specific items. Unless I'm completely insane, and believe me, I tried really hard, I don't think there's a way to just select a certain song or piece of art and unlock it. Similar to an Exard, there is a fishing minigame where you spend your world dollars, you fish, and you end up with some random items, which would be fine, but the fish is completely and utterly inundated with items for your avatar. I'm talking fucking like, there's too many. There's too much stuff for you to fish up involving your stupid avatar. So even though all of this music is there for you to unlock, it seems like it's kind of just a crapshoot whether or not you actually unlock it. So let's say, for example, I wanted to buy Wanna Be Crazy, which is probably my favorite Guilty Gear song. Tough shit, go fishing, buddy. And this really wouldn't bother me so much if it wasn't for just how much junk there is to unlock with the avatar. I don't care about unlocking Mayhat Color 4. Excellent, I have Beard 2 now. So I'm hoping I'm either just like completely wrong and you can ignore everything I've been saying, or they'll later change this and make it so that you can just buy the stuff that you want. Since you could do it that way in Exart, if you wanted a particular song or piece of art or whatever, you could just buy it. So yeah, weird sort of conundrum. Basically every Guilty Gear song is in here, but good luck getting them. So this is the part of the review that's like awkward. Dog, I tried so hard to find somebody to play this with. I would jump back and forth between the various lobbies, like, over and over and over again in the vain hope of trying to find somebody, but I just never found an opponent to play against. I have 3 theories about why this could be. Number 1, and I think this is the most likely theory, all of the game's journalists and influencers are down in the lower levels of the tower that I cannot access. The joke is that video game journalists are bad at video games. Theory number 2, actually nobody but me got a PC review copy, and everybody is either on PS4 or PS5. And theory 3 is that I have been trapped in Silent Hill and have been given the gift of Guilty Gear Strive and the curse of having nobody to play it with for like a week. So this part of the review is pretty much just based on my experiences in Beta 2. But the lobbies of this game have kind of been talked about to death, like, we've been complaining about these things for, God, a year at this point. It's sort of like the thing about how if you put a frog in water and gradually increase the heat, it won't notice and it'll like burn to death. That's not true, by the way. The frog just jumps out, like, but they've made slight incremental improvements to it over time. Like, before you would kind of just pick a spot and like wave your sword around, but now there's dedicated stations for it, which works out a lot better. You're not just in some nebulous, unquantified space, you're in a particular fighting area. So that makes things work out a little bit better, but it still just feels so form over function to me. Like, this sort of thing I think was cute back when they did it in like Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. It's like, oh wow, we have our little chibi avatars, there's, you know, little arcade cabinets. Oh man, this is kind of cute. And then in Dragon Ball FighterZ, it was highly obnoxious because you had to like move the thing around, put down a ring, like invite people or tell them, yeah, I'm at da-da-da East Coast 69. Go walk over there. And I really don't downright despise it. I find it to just be more kind of obnoxious than anything. Since it's like, what happened to just, oh yeah, I would like to play the video game. Here I go. Online, player match, quick match. Ah, yes, a match. Excellent. Now, the bizarre paradox of this game is that it has one of the weirdest, jankiest sort of like online setups, and some of the best online I have ever experienced in a fighting game ever. Probably the best. My eyes have truly been awoken to the power of rollback netcode. You know, back in the dark era, shitty fighting game online was kind of just a reality. It was just a sort of unavoidable thing that is like, oh yeah, oh, 14 frames, that's so wacky, oh, these online fighting games. But then through Strive and like Plus R, I began to realize the glorious magnificence that is rollback, and was enlightened to the fact that, oh, wait a minute, it doesn't have to be shitty. It can basically feel like you're just playing with another person right next to you. Playing the game online is just great. Like, I really cannot overstate enough how much it has just made it like impossible, I think, for me to really go back and play delay-based games. It's just like the frustration is not worth it. I have been enlightened. I have realized the truth about existence. Very, very splendid. So yeah, Guilty Gear Strive. It definitely has its quirks. I'm not gonna say that it's like perfect and flawless in every way. The lobbies are still like, The unlockable stuff is great. The way you unlock it is kind of goofy. There's definitely stuff gameplay-wise that I miss from the past games, but despite the kind of weirdness of it, I overall really, really enjoy Strive. And like I said, it really is just the fun factor of it. Like, ultimately, if I had to describe what it is about Strive that I enjoy, it is the fact that it is fun. It's a game that I can see myself playing for, you know, just hours and hours and hours at a time with friends. I mean, hell, I already have in the past 2 betas. Like, I can tell I'm gonna be sticking to this one for a long time. This is definitely gonna be like one of the most regular kinds of games that I play. And I think it's a really great entry in what I think is my favorite fighting game series. But yeah, that has been the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and once again, huge thank you to Arxis. I really can't express enough how cool it is to think that, like, back when Exard first came out, I was still a wide-eyed little teenager, and now here I am all these years later, getting to review the next entry in the series, and it's like, that's pretty cool, I think. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time.